story about a mother, her son, and, believe it or not, the alphabet. And it reveals a common but really critical mistake in how we think about our own spiritual journey.
Okay, so let's dive right into that story. It really sets the stage for a powerful philosophical truth by showing how just a simple misunderstanding of the basics can lead someone to reject an entire world of knowledge.
So, our story starts with this poor widow, and for her, her only son, he was everything. Her entire hope for the future was wrapped up in him. Everything she did for him.
10 rupees a month. She'd scrape this together to hire a tutor for him to teach him things like geometry. So one day, the tutor starts the lesson with a really basic geometric principle. He has the boy read this simple, foundational truth out loud. The widow hears this and just bursts into the room, and she is furious. From where she's standing, her hard-earned money is being totally wasted on teaching him the alphabet, something she's convinced he mastered when he was just a little kid. Her reaction was just so absolute. He was basically forced to leave.
Okay, so you might be thinking, what's the big deal? But this story isn't just about a simple mix-up over a geometry class. It's actually a perfect metaphor for a huge and surprisingly common spiritual mistake.
You see, the widow's whole argument that the ABC is just for beginners, something you leave behind, it perfectly mirrors this widespread misconception about what spiritual service and liberation are all about. So here's the thing. A lot of spiritual seekers from all different paths start to see service as this temporary, almost demeaning state. They think it's the root cause of all their suffering in the world, something they need to escape from. And for them, the end goal is to become equal to the supreme. To get to that point of aham brahmasi, where they can declare, I am the absolute. And where does this big mistake come from? Well, the source material calls it the false ego. It's this powerful illusion where the soul gets so tangled up in the material world that it starts to think it's the one calling all the shots, that it's the one doing everything. Great story to show just how dangerous this mindset is. It's the parable of the exploding frog. So the story goes, a baby frog runs to its mom and tells her about this enormous animal it just saw, an elephant. But the mother frog, just full of pride, she can't accept that anything could be bigger than her. So what does she do? She starts puffing herself up. And every time her son says, no, Mom, it was way bigger, her ego just takes over. She puffs herself up even more. Was it this big? She asks. Nope, still bigger, the baby frog says again and again. This just keeps going. She's desperately trying to make herself equal to this great thing that's way beyond her, and her body just can't handle it. Finally, she explodes. So, what's the takeaway here? It's a really stark warning. The story teaches that this false ego, this desire to puff yourself up and try to be equal to the supreme, well, it only leads to your own destruction. Okay, so if that's the big spiritual mistake, then what's the actual foundational ABC that the widow in our first story got so wrong? Here's the corrective truth, the real ABC. Service isn't some temporary state of bondage you're trying to escape. No, it's the soul's eternal, natural function. It's the very foundation of our spiritual being. And this path of devotion, it's not just a flat line. It's a journey, a process of cultivation. It starts with what's called sadhana bhakti, which is all about the initial practices of service. From there, it can grow into bhava bhakti, this incredible stage of ecstatic, deep feeling. And that can lead to prema bhakti, which is pure, loving devotion. And the ultimate goal? It's something called apratihata seva, a state of irresistible, totally free service that just flows from you naturally forever. And this, right here, is the key point. Unlike the widow who thought ABC was just for babies, this fundamental principle of service isn't something you outgrow. It's actually something that gets renewed and perfected, even after you achieve liberation. In fact, it is the state of perfection. So all of this really leaves us with a fundamental choice. And it's not a choice between serving and not serving. It's a choice between two very different kinds of service. Look, on one hand, you've got servitude to this material world, to illusion. That's the real bondage, right? It's driven by that false, puffed-up ego, and it's the path that leads to destruction, just like the frog. But on the other hand, you have loving service to the divine, and that is described as our eternal profession, the absolute most perfect state, and what true freedom really is. And that really brings us to the final, crucial thought here.
The source material is telling us that we are all serving something all the time. There's no escaping it. So the only real question we have to ask ourselves is this: is the thing we're serving leading us to the bondage of a puffed up ego, or is it leading us to the freedom of our true eternal nature?